All right, recording's on. You can go.
Welcome everyone to the Economic Development Committee. We're so excited to be here. Let's talk first about approving the minutes for July 21st, 2022.
Make a motion to approve the minutes.
Okay.
Thank you.
Fair. Heidi Rawls contacted me and said that she wasn't included in the attendance, so I would recommend your motion include her in the attendance with a minor amendment.
Sure, I'll make the motion to include her as attended and cancel my old motion to approve. A new motion.
Okay.
Second.
Thanks, George.
Yeah.
The motion passes.
You
So
gotta
we're good for-
ask for a vote.
We have to ask for a vote.
Oh, no, we already did. No, you
No.
gotta ask, you gotta do the vote. All
You wanna
approve,
do
all,
this?
all in favor?
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, I need to work on. Okay, so that's for Heidi Rawls. If, this is just a side note, so motion passes, we're good to go for Heidi. If like George wasn't here, can he still pass the minutes? Is that correct? Can he still make a motion to pass the minutes if he wasn't in attendance in the meeting? I don't know if he was or not. I'm just asking a question.
Yeah, I mean, it's possible also that someone who made a motion looked at the meeting recording and then compared it to the draft minutes, so that's possible.
Okay, just making sure. So again, need a motion to approve the minutes for July 21st, 2022. Fine.
Yeah.
You're gonna
yeah.
do the motion?
Okay, I'll
Thank
do
you,
the motion.
Brian. Thank you, George. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes. Thank you. Okay. Same thing, November 17th, 2022.
Make a motion.
Thank you, Brian.
Second.
Thank you,
Aye.
George. And that a vote?
Yeah.
Motion passes.
For the agenda, you mean?
The agenda. And now we're, oh gosh. Oh, for the agenda, I beg your pardon. So now we're approving the minutes for October 20th, 2022. How, we didn't do it that one. Did we not have a quorum in October? Oh, no, we did. This is the meeting time. I beg your pardon. I haven't eaten since yesterday. It's a thing. Motion.
I'll make a motion to approve.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes. Thank you. Okay. Is there any public comment? Anyone? And so I'd like to welcome our new members. We do have another one, Sean Finden, who is of the Grocery Outlet. I had the wonderful opportunity to interview his wife for our newsletter. She's delightful. And so I'm excited to have him on our committee. So he's not here today, but we also have Mr. Paul Fidrich, who is also part of Parks, right?
Yes, Parks Committee. Thank you. Guess this is my introduction time. So first of all, thank you for inviting me to
Participating.
the group. Just real quick about myself is that I've lived here for 2.5 years. Before that, I lived in Portland. My background is I actually have an engineering degree and a physics degree. And my first job was in manufacturing engineering back in the 80s in Massachusetts for Polaroid Corporation. And then I joined Burton Snowboards because I was a snowboarder and I was a product manager. And we took the company from 50 million to 400 million during my time and rose to director of product there. And then was recruited from Nike to start Action Sports in 2000. And I was a president of a Nike subsidiary for 4 years. And then went through the Nike chain of many senior management positions. I then went to Fox Racing Shocks, and I was the chief marketing officer in California. Fox Racing makes outdoor gear as well, so I've been in the sporting goods industry for a long time. In 2009, I helped my wife start a company called Cycle Dog, which makes dog products. We started very small, and we've grown to about 32 employees. And we own a building in downtown Portland, Northwest, 10,000 square feet. I know Paul Vogel's been trying to get us to move out here eventually. Maybe we would, because we need about 25,000 square feet. We actually manufacture products in USA, so which is kind of cool. So I've kind of been all around with small companies, large companies. I went to Wharton Business School as well, so it kind of helps with regards to the business acumen. But really, the reason why I'm here is to help Scappoose, and as many can attest, I pretty much attend every city meeting because I feel that the town is special, and we're kind of at a crossroads with regards to how we're going to grow, and I really want to help in any way possible. So thank you for inviting me here, and I look forward to getting started.
We look forward to your participation and your expertise. We have, I know we talked about it. These are council goals, but do we have a list of our goals from last year?
Finishing a sandwich. The reason I included the council goals is to just show you what's in play right now. And then of those, you can pick out the economic development goals.
Yeah. I wanted our goals from last year that we had set.
Those were recommended and some of them were adopted as council goals.
Do we have a list of what we'd set our goals for last year?
I can get that for you.
Okay. So that is what we're doing this meeting, is trying to create our goals. And I think last year when we did our goal setting, I really approached it not in the correct direction. I think that where I really relied so much on city to kind of give us that direction, I think that I was approaching it incorrectly. And I really think that having a greater partnership with council will make us more effective. I did have a meeting with Josh Poling, who is unfortunately our exiting council liaison, but he apologized profusely for never having attend, but he did have a lot to say on, where we should be focusing on our time and how we could best partner with council in, being resourceful for them. But I would like to hear from everybody, like what they think. Paul, you're the newest person.
Okay, I'm just going to jump right into it. So I'm in the Parks and Rec committee as well. So firstly, on the meeting format, I've attended a few of these meetings, and it turned to me, it feels like the city is reading a lot of items to us for the entire meeting, and it takes up most of the meeting. So getting up these updates, which are great, but we're not really get a chance to do a lot of work because of the timing it takes. And what we do at the Parks Committee is we get, you get updates when needed, but because there are more formal here, maybe we get it on paper like a week beforehand. Like we ask every, person that we've been asking to come and talk to just do 4 bullet points or something that we could get, because to me, they're all super interesting, but they basically read them to us.
Yeah.
And then the meeting's over.
I
And
don't disagree.
that's just an idea coming from the outside.
Brian Rosenthal, I have an alternative idea. Instead of doing updates every meeting, switch it to every other. I'm thinking that for some people, having a written thing would add a burden to them because they're planning on attending the meeting anyhow. So so you're adding a layer of work for them to have a written thing versus just showing up and doing it. But what we could do is, instead of having our updates every meeting, we could go to every other meeting, which would clear out half the time. And there's nothing really going on that fast in the city right now that, at least I personally feel like we need an update every meeting.
Yes, and to add to that, I believe that the things that they bring up are not necessarily relevant to the city of Scappoose. Like no offense to Mr. Garrett, but I don't need to hear anything more about the construction of the John Gum building. I don't care. It's irrelevant to all of us and we know about it. So I think that having them be more specific in their updates and how it relates to economic development of the city of Scappoose is where we should focus.
And if they did it every other time, then they wouldn't be excusing the phrase looking for Phil.
Yes.
So I think inherently it would make it more direct, more specific.
Yes.
Because they wouldn't have to have material.
We could save the city money without providing all those sandwiches extra.
Jeff Weiss, I know I'm not a voting member, but I'd like Paul's idea of getting the written updates just because I'd like to have a monthly update. There's stuff, for instance, in the paper, I guess it was last week, I don't know because I read it online, about all of the housing development that's in process. So,
City will always be here.
yeah. But like knowing stuff like that, I would like to
You know,
know.
as a compromise, we could get an update every month from the city, not from our partners.
Yeah.
That way the city's more directly relevant to what we're doing anyhow.
Yes, absolutely.
That could be a compromise where we get an update every time from the city, but all the partners do it every other. And that way it would spread out. And we're gonna have somebody from the city here anyhow. So it's
Yeah, I like, do we have other people on?
We only had Paul on and he left the meeting.
It's just us chickens.
Yes, but recorded chickens.
always recorded.
So, I mean, I think that Jeff brings a lot of good stuff to our meeting because again, it's
Yeah,
relevant to the
no.
city of Scappoose. I like Paul's stuff because it's relevant to the city of Scappoose. And I like the city stuff and sometimes Nancy's stuff. For the most part, no, I think CRPD's great, but I don't get a lot from their updates.
Yeah, well, sorry. So what are you suggesting?
So I think that, you know, if we're gonna look at it, we can do every other, but let's redirect the focus to who's specific.
I think the very
Scappoose.
process of going to every other would make it more Scappoose specific. Not necessarily guaranteeing, but likely.
Yes.
What about a hybrid that we do the weeks that they're not here? If they have something that they feel we should know about, they would give you, 2 or 3 bullet points. That way they don't feel like it's 2 months away. We didn't hear about it or whatever. Just an opportunity. Not that we have to.
If they have something that's viable to the city of Scappoose and they want to attend the meeting, I think they can, but, you know, I completely agree, 45 minutes of their updates and that, I have to report back to council, which we'll talk about, what we've been doing in this year. And I can talk about the John Gum building a lot. We're in agreement. We don't have to vote on this, right? Okay. So do we want to look at our old goals? He gave us a list.
One more thing to add,
Oh,
mind.
never mind.
Another area that I think this committee could be really helpful on is urban renewal. Because I've watched the whole process currently. And first of all, the requirements are for urban renewal and how we're giving the funding quite open right now. And
Talk to Josh about that.
perhaps this committee could help with setting standards for urban renewal.
Mhm.
And then secondarily, the council's time is very valuable. Maybe this group could be the first vetting of people that wanted to come forth with urban renewal. And then we could then give recommendations to council. So that council isn't kind of just sitting there, never heard of anything before. They ask questions that, could have been asked beforehand, but of course, they're just hearing it for the first time. Someone comes with a coffee, whatever. Perhaps we could do some of that work for them, some of that
Agreed.
vetting, and also because we're more involved with trying to grow the city economically, we could have those questions ready to go for those people.
I agree.
No disagreement here.
I think you and I have talked about that. It's in the parking lot. It wasn't like a formal thing. NJ, did you have a question?
Just in whatever role you decide to play to urban renewal, just be mindful of the way the structure works with urban renewal agency and the EDC being both under the council in the chart. So just be mindful of the processes that already exist for that.
I've got a question, not that I'm pushing it in any way.
Hmm.
Originally, when we set up the urban rural district, the idea was that the money would primarily go to common needs for economic development, such as improvements to the water and sewer treatment plant, sidewalks where there weren't sidewalks, and other things. It seems like it's gone off a little bit on a tangent buying espresso machines. I was wondering, is there any chance that we could request council to let us run the grant program?
You probably could, but I don't know that they legally can.
Okay,
Because the Urban Renewal Agency is a separate organization. It's
Right.
made up of the council. That being said, the whole purpose of urban renewal is to increase the tax increment. And so when you're doing things like, if the city was to use that money just to do like water improvements, things like that, it wouldn't necessarily bring the tax increment up. So the way that they will usually typically work those dollars is they grant them to organizations or businesses in the area that will do that kind of work. So this lot over here, when that develops, they're gonna have to do half street improvements to First and Columbia. So that will be water lines, sewer lines, stormwater,
yeah, this
sidewalks, all that.
this wasn't how this was presented to us when we were actually the committee that made the recommendation to council to create this process. It was not presented to us as a way to fund private development.
Well, it's both. It gets it both. So you freeze taxes, right? And you freeze them at some point artificially. And as the value of the property goes up, the difference between what's frozen and what the current property is pulled aside for.
Right, no,
renewal.
I fully understand how the incremental process works. In fact, I think I paid between somewhere around $1,500 this year into that fund. But as I've never asked for the government to pay for any of my development, and it seems to be a very slippery slope to be taking tax money from one taxpayer to hand it to another when it's not for the common good. It's for their personal profit. There can be common, like for instance, one of the reasons we did the sewer and treatment plant, I believe 20% of the money is going towards that or something like that, was because in order to grow, we did not have adequate water and sewer. So the justification was we don't have adequate water and sewer treatment plant. But we also have problems that I've run up against and others have, that we don't necessarily have water and sewer lines everywhere in the city. You know, and so that's been a hindrance to development. That is for the common good. It's not for an individual lot. And
Right. And so to get the dollars to replace something like a water treatment plant, 3 million, you're not going to get that with the currently frozen.
Oh, no, I
So
understand.
you balance it out between giving money directly to programs, and then part of urban renewal is to help improve the properties that exist. And when you do those improvements, you greatly increase the tax value, which allows you to do these other projects. So
Yeah,
it's
see,
both sides of it. Because
no, I
we can't
understand
reach
what you-
directly into a private property and say, you need to change this. I mean, urban renewal, if it's just doing utility improvements, that wouldn't qualify.
Right. So what we discussed originally was that there was no need to help individual owners with their individual developments because the economics in Scappoose support it. Development is being curtailed more by a lack of available land than a lack of desire for development. If we had 1,000 lots for houses right now in Scappoose, that were available, they'd probably all be developed. But there's just it's like it's happening in St. Helens. The economics work for development. It's more about a question of hindrances, like maybe a parcel doesn't have access to sewer. But we talked about this previously when we did this whole approval process. So the way you're explaining it to me now is very different than how it was explained to us at the time.
Oh, the urban renewal district is, you can't use money outside the district.
No, I know that.
So.
No,
so
I'm
adding
not
more-
saying that it should
Adding
be
more
used.
land is not something that urban renewal is going to do.
Right, but there are things like, for instance, and I think you guys are working on it right now, there's sidewalk issues on the other side of Columbia. I don't know where that money's coming from, but I keep seeing surveyors out there working on on redoing the sidewalk out there. And so those are the kinds of things that may have benefit for the larger area without being for a specific, it helps everybody in the area. Like if they build a sidewalk on the other side of Columbia, not in front of my property, that's a better sidewalk and that's not at street grade, that's better for everybody. The property owner in front of it gets the most benefit, but we all get benefit from it. And I'm not saying that I support the idea of a brew pub over there. I'm just thinking that when we start picking individual developments to hand money to, when those developments would not, it would be developed either way. So it's not, so we're just kind of
For
throwing money around.
perspective, the current urban renewal district has $50,000 to it.
Right, it doesn't have a significant amount of money.
And to grow that dollar to a point where we can do projects like install sidewalks, which are 100,000 per block or something,
Right.
whatever it is, you have to grow the tax increment. So you have to start somewhere. And just sitting on it for the 20 years we have for the district or whatever the years isn't going to get us enough money.
No, I
One of the
understand that.
tools that the districts use for these grant programs, because if you can, now the way they make that decision, whether it's an espresso machine or what, right, that's out of my hands. The idea is to
I'm done with the espresso machine. It just seems,
yeah, and so the point is to more like, it would be like to redevelop the property or to develop this lot, right? The money that would go in wouldn't cover all of the half street improvements. It wouldn't cover all the development. It's to incentivize them to do that. If the district can incentivize a development where they're gonna do those kind of half street improvements, or they're gonna, whatever these things are to make it nicer, to bring up the tax dollars, will allow the bigger projects to happen.
so like an example that we've talked about for years here is getting electrical outlets and streetlights on the streetlights so that we could have Christmas lights, because we have no Christmas lights or holiday lights or whatever you want to call them here in town. That wouldn't be a tremendous amount of money, but it hasn't happened because the money hasn't been there. That would benefit the whole area. I actually got a email requesting, is there any way you can help promote Christmas lights, up and down the streets here, about a week and a half ago. And that would be an example of something IHC would have a common use. I built 3 buildings in town here, commercial buildings. I was given no subsidies for those streets. I didn't need it. And I'm going to just throw this out, is that I don't think anybody needs it. I think that if you have the land and the land is the right land, then $30,000, $40,000, $50,000 makes no difference. If you don't have the right land, then nothing's going to work. So it's just adding an expense where we could take that money and put potentially Christmas lights or something else in.
So
That would have a
without
common benefit instead of,
increasing that tax increment, those things aren't gonna happen. If we could have done them, we would have, like putting in those poles. So, I mean, if we had the money to just go rip up the streets and do the water.
I know, I understand. The money's not there to do
Right.
big stuff right now.
So the urban renewal is the tool to do that. It just doesn't have money right away.
Right, no, I understand that that's not an option. I guess I'm saying is I would pick, or one of the things that was brought up was in this committee and also through the urban renewal process where we discussed the creation of it, was that we were trying to create a downtown and adding, obviously development is a big part of that, but also we were trying to upgrade the area. And so some of the lower lying fruit, like potentially getting, everything set up so we can have Christmas lights would be not a huge expense. And it might be something that instead of giving money to individuals.
So, Brian, we had talked about giving small grants to businesses.
Oh, yeah, no,
to
and
upgrade,
Yeah,
if the
that's-
sin blocks were
right.
upgraded.
And that was for existing construction. We never got into paying for new construction. So if we had a dilapidated building and it needed a new awning, we talked about doing matching grants, small amounts and that kind of thing. And that's 100% true.
So where I mean, ultimately that ask, that suggestion to the urban renewal agency, they can do what they want.
Right, they'll do what they want.
So they chose to take that suggestion, I
Let's go-
think, and build it to these mixed use grants where you can have one or the other, and that's their call. I would suggest that, could send a recommendation or a group letter to the agency talking about these things, I mean, we technically staff the agency, but they only meet when they have to. I think they're gonna meet again in February.
Is it like a quarterly thing normally? I
It
know
kind of depends when they have
Only
business.
for a while where they were trying to sort out how they were going to be structured.
Yeah, it's,
Then now it's more of a quarterly kind of thing.
yeah, more quarterly and mostly when they have business. So like
Okay.
when there's a new grant or if they have an item to talk about. So it could be a discussion. It could be something you say, hey, we'd like to come to the Urban Renewal Agency and talk to them about what we think about what they've done so far and where they're
I think
going.
that you and I've gone to those.
Yeah, we've gone to a couple of those
Yeah.
already.
But I think just going back to our goals, that being said, and with Josh and the discussion that I had with him and with my vision of why I'm here, I do want our, are we calling it Sunrow? Is that what we're gonna call it? That seems right, especially now that we have massage.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just, everything's right there. Let's improve that. So I think that versus, let's not talk about the espresso machine and what a waste that is of our dollars, but let's really look at marketing, and I'm volunteering for this opportunity, letting those business owners know that these grants are available to them. What can we do to create something that is a little bit more appealing versus what we have right now with this, I call it the colored section of our town. I don't like, I just want that communication to happen so these business owners know that it's there. I would also like some kind of standard. Other communities have standards. I want to have a standard. So there's a standard sign requirement. This is what your building colors can be. You're not going to put a lavender building in a turquoise building and a yellow building. So it, again, it looks tacky and cheap. I would like to have some kind of standard in the city of Scappoose. I think we can do this. I think that's within our purview to make that happen. I really also want to talk about where is our downtown. That's something that Josh and I talked about. It should technically be over here. It should guide us over into OMIC. This is something that we also need to start planning and start thinking about. And, you know, you guys can't do it. They can't do it. Let's talk about what we can do as a committee to present to them as ideas. These are my ideas for our goals going forward.
I have a question for you. How do you see that translating to a goal for council to give to staff? What would that look like? That's kind of what these are. These are goals that go to council to create goals for the city for the next year. So those are going to be that list.
My first bullet, I mean, if we just take the urban renewal, I mean, I want to take the grant application and communicate that information to the business owners and letting them know that this is a possibility, number one. But before I do that, we need to have a standard put in place.
So the goal would be this.
Right,
fiscal
Probably
year.
update Old Town overlay.
That's what I was
Because
gonna say,
that would be
down-
that
have
would be the
downtown
only
overlay.
way to do it.
Have
So
that.
update Old Town overlay it seems like that, but I believe that's also part of the 50-year plan.
I think it's part of the work, yeah.
Yeah, and so that may not be something that we can do in the next year because it may not be, we'd have to talk to Lori and see where it's slated in that process. Because we might want to jump into it, but if she's not ready for it, then
Yeah, that's a good point. I think
Yeah.
that would be useful though, because then you could do pre-work, right? You don't have to wait for it. You could do some work ahead of time
and even if she's not ready for it yet, we could do pre-work.
and figure out what things you're looking for, what things you'd like to see. So
Yeah.
So that
and that-
area is going to develop whether it's guided or not.
They also,
The guidance.
yeah, they're all,
Otherwise, we're gonna have 15 different colored buildings.
there's also an issue too, like right now, let's say that site develops. We're not required, under the current overlay, there's different areas depending on where you are geographically. So like right now, we have decorative lights over here on Second Street and on Columbia. But First Street is not, I don't know if that block, but I know most of that block is not required to have decorative streetlights. Is that something that we want in the
We talked,
development code?
yeah, we talked about lights.
No, but I'm saying is, under the current code, decorative streetlights are not necessarily required in all areas of the Old Town District. And it's also not required in all areas of the Urban Renewal District. So, and the two are not exactly the same. They overlap, but they're not the same. And I definitely, there's going to be, I mean, it's going to be a complicated process to go through that document. I actually was involved in the redo of it a few years ago, which we made it better, not great. But it was, there's lots, that would be a major goal to undertake that. That is a significant amount of time, given if we're also going to try to potentially maybe even expand the area a little bit, I would stay away from the airport, but there's some of the other areas that I don't believe are in the Old Town overlay that are in the urban renewal. So
That's another goal then.
there's a lot of rabbit holes down there. That would be a major time suck, which not saying it's not worthy. If we did make that a goal to redo that, that's not something we're going to knock out in a meeting or two.
Right, revise, well, and then we have a lot of goals that are like that, where they're 5-year goals or 3-year goals. So things that sometimes we need to plan for budget for, or we need to plan for a consultant, or we need to do, takes 3 years to do the thing. So that's something you could suggest for sure.
Well, Christine, going up a level, and I'm not sure if you were at the meetings for council on how they got there, but the urban renewal agency, I forgot the woman's name that presented to us.
Consultant, you mean?
Consultants, yeah. They highly suggested that we follow the Sandy model, which was to create a design aesthetic that would enhance the town. And then through urban renewal, if people, if let's say an old building wanted to be upgraded, it would have to follow the design aesthetic.
So what we currently have in the Old Town overlay is there is that requirement, but there's a dollar point or where till it kicks in. So if you go out there and you're doing a paint job or you're fixing an awning, you're not required to upgrade. If you get into major changes, and I forget the dollar amount, it might be 50,000, but I'm not sure.
But the design aesthetic was built by a designer that they said, we're going to create a mountain town. They rebranded their town around Gateway to Mount Hood. They,
Really nice.
well, if you guys know Sandy 20 years ago, it did not
Yeah,
look
I
very
remember.
nice.
Cute.
And so they came in with a design aesthetic and they said, this is how we're going to look and feel. And that affected everything, their entire branding, all their
we?
marketing. Sorry,
Who's we?
who's we?
They decided this is how we are going to look and.
I don't,
Who's the
I didn't look at their city council notes from 2002.
I mean, but is it
but-
council that decides that? Is it the city?
Oh,
that
so who would
decides
we
that?
do?
Who's the
Well, we
we?
could recommend that we create a aesthetic or
We
a
need to have an identity.
identity, and then that could go to council and they can decide if that's a goal that they will undertake. And that could mean a process that they get a consultant or whatever else. I don't know, but we would recommend it to council, and then council would then decide if that's a goal that they'd like to pursue.
So that's particularly interesting because I know council has been interested in kind of looking at the city brand. And that kind of would feed into whatever this would look like, right? Because that would be a very public statement about what the city is. So I think that there might already be a tie-in there that could be utilized to do some of this work and kind of check both boxes where, you're looking at creating a physical place that looks away. And also at the same time, that's also talking about what the city brand is.
And then I think this kind of loops into the Main Street program, and Alex and I have talked about the amount of staff required to actually do a Main Street program. I was speaking to Wella at not CSET anymore, whatever it's called. And their Travel Oregon is going to have a Main Street program for small communities like we are. And I understand Skephoos did not show up at that meeting, but it would be great if we could partner with Travel Oregon and participate in this Main Street opportunity for that branding and for facade improvement and all of those things.
So are you saying that somebody else would provide staff to manage it up in the
Yes.
city?
So they have an agency that will help small cities.
My only concern is I wouldn't want to add a large burden to staff. I know staff has a lot going
No,
on.
I mean, I think this is the out for them.
Okay, so you think
it's-
this would
so
cover
it's
it?
Not creating additional work for them.
Yeah, Wella just got a grant actually for Vernonia, like an art grant. So their whole downtown it has a very similar theme and it's all very artsy and aesthetic.
That's actually that's one thing. This is another thing where it's actually through Travel Oregon and a Main Street program that it's under process in developing. And we could have taken advantage of that, like if we wanted to actually paint that totem pole so it doesn't, or the silo, what's it called? The candle. So it actually looks like something great besides a big grain silo with an electronic wick. Like I suggested that maybe we paint it more kind of like a totem or a storyboard And I talked to Willa about it, and there are programs that we as a city could put that out for commission. They would paint it, and then we would become something that Travel Oregon would promote because we have this many murals. So we would be on that marketing campaign for Travel Oregon. That's the Vernonia thing.
So Christine, and just in general with regards to staff, what I've noticed over the last 2 years is that while on the surface, it does add a burden. At the same time, the amount of hours that is spent by, I've seen staff in council on going back and saying and asking who we are and what's our aesthetic and what are we about. I mean, we spent hours and hours and hours on just trying to figure out what paint color on the candle. The logo for the Centennial took dozens and dozens and dozens of hours because no one knew what we were about. The logo
Need
for
somebody who's a visionary.
the logo for the Adventure Fest, and it kept going back to, well, geez, we're about this. No, we're not about this. What are we about? But if we had a cohesive message, that would drive many, many of these things. And once we had, it would be a very difficult process, but once we had it done, it would alleviate a lot of the work that I think continues through day to day here in the city.
Well, I think we need to see why people are moving here. What makes us really attractive to people. I hope it's not something boring like it's not Portland.
Library program. That's why people move here.
I don't think we can solve it here today, but I think if we could maybe put that as one of our goals and somehow arrange it, Isaac, that you think would be.
Yeah, so under goal 1, there are a couple of things that come to mind. So 1.3 is identify goals for community branding. That's currently a goal. And one of the things that can be done is to add detail. So maybe it's not just goals for community branding, but maybe the recommendation of council is undertake a branding process. Actually, do the work, not just have it on there to identify them, but actually do the work this year.
Yeah.
And that could turn into a goal.
I think that would be great. I feel compelled to call on Joe. Welcome, Joe.
Mayor-elect.
Meryl. Oh, good. I wasn't sure if it was mayor-elect or bride-to-be. I wasn't sure. We're talking about our goals and how we can serve council the best way. But I would love to have your understanding or your vision. And do you have a vision for what Scappoose should look like? Is that something in your future?
Thank you for having me. Joe Scappoose. I don't have a specific,
Scappoose.
go back to Scappoose. I don't have a specific vision because I want to listen to the community. I mean, my voice will be one of many when we fill this out because I've been here a long time. So I do have some ideas and thoughts, but I want to listen to everybody first and see what is all out there. I do like that idea about on the goal 1.3, identifying goals, is coming up with branding. Start with who are we? Where do we want to be?
Who do we want to be?
Who do we want to be? And kind of go from there. I do like your idea. We have the candle now. I do like the idea with the art and possibly with the Wella or a grant, having a mural, having a paint, something to that effect. There's a lot of ideas, especially with the parks too, but I think we need to really start with who we are. I mean, I know it's maybe another survey, but are we a recreation area? Are we just a gateway to St. Helens? Are we just a suburb of Portland? I mean, no. But I want to really engage the community and find out why they're here. I did a lot of engagement, obviously, in the last couple of months, and a lot of people said it's not Portland. We moved from Portland. A lot of people moved here because their kids are here now with their grandkids. So they're following their kids. They're retired, so they're moving into this area. A lot of people, it's close to Beaverton, Portland, or they can get to work real quick. So I really like to reach out to those people and find out, what do you think of Scappoose? Where are we? Where do you want to be in the next few years? And be one of the team that helps decide that.
Jay?
So we just, for our 50-year survey, the first one that we rolled out, one of the main questions that we asked people is, what do you love about Scampoose? And then the second one was, why did you move here? So I'll send, yeah, I will send this committee that data because we have a very nice put together sheet of all of the responses.
Brian Rosenthal. So we were, just to wrap up the Urban Renewal District, I had a short tangible request that I'd like to request of council if other committee members will go along with it. The request would be is that we review grant applications. I understand we're not the official committee, so we don't get to say yes or no, but just like Planning Commission and Parks Committee makes recommendations, and then council does what they want with it, either change it, accept it, deny it. I would see that. That was kind of what we were kind of led to believe back in the day would happen when the Urban Renewal District was formed, that we would be involved in the ongoing process of it. And then as soon as we pushed it through, it kind of disappeared from our plate. So if I had a request for a goal, it would be that council would let us review grant applications, give a recommendation, with the full understanding that our recommendation would not necessarily be what would happen, but we could give reasons pro and con, and it would streamline the process for council, so council didn't have to spend as much time, just like the Planning Commission and everybody else does that.
I think that when this, and I did talk to council about it, when these first two grants came to them, I think that they didn't have a lot of background on it and they approved them. But I understand that there were other ones they wanted to kind of dissect a little bit more. I think they were excited because they had two, so they approved. But I think if we were able to do a little bit more of the footwork and give them a good argument for why we feel that this is for the greater good of our community, I think that would be beneficial. They are limited in time.
It seems to be part of what the purpose would be. I mean, we are advisory committee.
On economic growth and the betterment of the community.
And this seems to be the Urban Rural District seems to be a significant part of the city's plan for that to happen. So if we're excluded from it, then it kind of is hard for us to do job that we were set up to do.
My recommendation to get the ball rolling on that is, Christine, when you go talk to council during the work session, bring this up. That way you can just, during a work session, get their feedback right then and there and see if that's something they're interested in reshaping.
Do that.
Have you guys set priorities then on the urban renewal and given it to council of what you would like to see them focus on, kind of your list of priorities on aesthetics or new business or?
So we did that when we actually were the committee that the original Urban Rural District was run through as a process. And then we made a recommendation to actually create one. And when we did that, there was a list of things that we had talked about that we would like to see happen with that money. Criteria, like money, 20% of the money roughly was going to the water and sewer treatment plant because we had long-term issues there. And then we talked about, for instance, that we would give grants to small businesses in a limited amount of money, but that we were really emphasizing that we wanted it for exterior features, not interior, so that it would create a better appearance for the city, because the idea was this money would help upgrade the appearance of the city. So we did not want things like remodeling espresso machines or other things that were on the inside, because they don't create it doesn't create as much of a benefit to the community's appearance as something on the outside. Like if somebody's got rotten awnings and they won't replace them, don't offer to replace them full, but give them, say, hey, we'll give you 30% or 50% if you recover your awnings. Like that, there's some buildings over there where the awnings are literally rotting off the frames. So anyhow, so that, I don't know if that answers your question fully, but.
We don't have a set aesthetic standard, but we're kind of talking.
We do have aesthetic standards currently in the Old Town District, but they could be better defined. But we do have things like you're not allowed to use a T111 in the architectural zone of the Old Town District. you're required to have a certain amount of glass area. There's actually fairly detailed on parts of the Old Town District. Other parts have very limited. So we'd have to look and match it up with the Urban Renewal District and kind of decide where it should go. But that is a long-term project that I think would be good to work on.
There's also design standards for multifamily buildings too,
Citywide or just?
citywide.
So I have 4 things for our goals that I've jotted down. Of course, we can't have all of them. George, do you have anything to
Well,
bring in?
I'm wondering, you have thousands of cars going Portland, St. Helens, or Longview. And it's so crowded that they don't get an opportunity to see scappoos. You know, residential areas or parks or whatever. I'm wondering if we couldn't figure something out on the highway. There's billboard laws and all that. Somehow to get them to come into Scappoose, maybe. You know, they're not going to see a lot,
I
but
mean, just
we
go-
do have an airport.
Get 'em
Yeah.
off the road, is that what you're saying?
Yeah.
Well, I'm hopeful that that brew pub that hopefully will be built over there. Years ago, we talked about putting signage on the highway, trying to direct people to this area as downtown Scappoose. And I actually argued against it because I was afraid what would happen is somebody would pull off of freeway once, do a drive around for 30 seconds and leave and never come back. But if we could, but we've gotten a little better since then. But if we had the brew pub over there, then, and that would really give this area a better feeling as a downtown, that just that one site being developed. And I also know, of course, there's going to be a new dentistry office being built. And although that's not relevant,
Totally an attraction.
it's not an attraction, but it gives a more feeling of full because it's going on a partially vacant lot. And so my thought was trying to direct people off to get them to stop here. Maybe we may want to wait a year or two
We
until.
don't have anything for them until we have, I mean, nobody's going to, all due respect, no one's going to stop to go to the dentist and skip.
Right, I understand.
So, but we
I
just
think the
need something.
food pod would be a larger attractor for people to stop.
Yes.
Yeah, the food pod,
Well, we had
You're a
this
pod person.
phenomenal trail from the river all the way over to through Vernonia and that area. One of the nicest private bike trails, walking trails. And of course, that's not something anybody's going to see when they're coming through town, but we
It's
have
something that could be
thousands of
promoted.
people coming through town. We have an airport. Some people may not realize we have that. We have one of the nicest trails going down to the river.
Mhm.
I think that extends to Horse Grove. If you followed it all the way.
so what would
I
you?
mean, there's a lot of amenities that nobody sees because of all the traffic going through town. So I guess my suggestion is there a way of
I think
letting
creating-
people know or?
I think once we begin to create our identity and we can market and brand our town, then you know, where the people's political signs are, and we can maybe market our town and so
Right.
introduce them to
Yeah.
who we are.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's going to be a point where we want better signage on the highway offering our amenities. But I'm not quite, but I'm not quite sure. Like some of it now, some of it though, we do have now, and there is some signage on the highway. For like there's signs, there's little sign, there's a few signs talking about, I think there's one for the Scappoose Airport, isn't there?
Yeah.
There's one for the Scappoose, there's little signs, but we could definitely have better signage. But I do think we might be a little premature.
Very premature. We don't have.
But
anything to
this
say.
whole thing's a countywide problem because there's amenities here and an audience, you know, in the next county over, and the amenities here are not promoted. Nobody knows about. That's an electronic promotion problem, not a highway
Well,
sign.
You mean-
last time I was here and I saw Brian when I was on my bike. They had this nice function across the highway with really no advertisement about it.
You're talking about the,
Well, what we
Action
talked
Fest.
about last time.
Action Fest?
Adventure
Yeah,
Fest.
I mean, here I'm on my bike riding around and I heard music. I thought, what's going on? I went over there and they had a wonderful festival, fairgrounds thing, whatever. And those types of things need to be exposed somehow. So I would suggest if somebody comes to the city with a plan, that it be exposed so that people realize that not just the traffic going through, but people that live in the town. Here I'm 3 blocks away from the main highway on my bike, and I didn't know what was going on till I got over there.
If I may, so a lot of people, you know, I think we have some pretty decent ideas here, but you know, just to say to market is such a term like, oh, we just got to tell people. It really is starting with this branding exercise and our philosophy. And if it's going to be a priority for us to be, let's say, an outdoor community, then we will need to start prioritizing and putting money toward, for instance, trailhead that's sitting on right off the highway. So the CZ Trail right now, that could be, everyone drives by it every day, and no one even knows that could be the gateway to the trail, a gateway.
Are you talking about on the west side of the highway?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, it's ugly and everything else. Like you can do all you want with signs and whatever, but at the end of the day, our branding program says that we want to promote Scappoose around outdoor activities. Then those things that we need to get done have to be driven to be as a priority, because you can't just make a sign and expect someone to come over and park there. Chapman Landing has to be developed because right now it's not. I mean, if you're coming from somewhere else and you saw a sign for Chapman Landing, it's pretty underwhelming.
Even less than underwhelming.
Yes, so
I like it there, but
I know. My point is that these are all just touch points that we all see every day.
Mhm.
But what we need to do is come up a level and say, okay, what is Scappoose all about? If it's going to be outdoor, and we all know we have some nice outdoor facilities here, and we start branding ourselves that way, similar to what Hood River does, then we will need to not only communicate that, but actually prioritize where we're going to spend some money to increase our amenities. We just can't have a sign that just says, you know, please get over here.
I think our marketing is way down. I think we have to build it before they will come. I mean that both ways.
Thank you. I was gonna ask Brian, like, going on that is, you know, chicken or the egg, what comes first? What is your recommendation or your feeling of industrial versus commercial versus residential? Is there a marketing thing? Obviously, we can't tell people what to do. They come and build here. You can market and try to develop that brand
so
and bring one of them in.
so most commercial is in reflection to industrial and residential development, meaning trying to push for a lot of commercial development is not going to be beneficial, because commercial development reflects a demand. How do you get the demand? Get the demand by having industrial and residential development, because that creates customers for the commercial development. So like one of the things you've probably heard 1,000 times, we need more restaurants. Except we've had restaurants and they've come and they've closed because there wasn't enough business to justify the thing. Now you can argue that the individual proprietors weren't good enough or what have you, but in order to, like we've talked, George has worked on trying to get Denny's here and some of those people here in the past. We're just not big enough for them. So, and we have a very high percentage of our population leaves the area to work, so that a restaurant that needs multiple meals a day to survive, it's extraordinarily difficult, because most of the people that earn money are leaving the town every day. So the way I would look at it is commercial development with a few small exceptions, like we need a hotel here desperately in order to create industrial development and to make this feel more like a city, not a bedroom community. With the exception of a hotel, but most commercial development is more a reflection of the residential and the industrial development. I think we've done a really good job as far as creating industrial land. So I don't think there's much work to be done on industrial. They just need to market it and sell it and make it happen. And it's privately owned, most of that land. Most of it's by one developer group. So they really kind of have control of that. It's their thing. Hopefully they become a little more motivated and lower their prices on the land enough so they can attract people. But that's the industrial. The residential issue is we need a larger UGB. You know, people talk about, oh, we want affordable housing, we want this, we want that. If we don't have enough land, you can't do it. And that's not really a local problem. I mean, we're working on it as part of the 50-year plan, but a lot of the curtailing of that is state law, which is preventing us from adding as much residential development as there would be a market for. I think literally, you know, if 3,000 homes were built out here, they'd be filled. There's just that much demand for them. So I guess we try to get our residential UGB expanded, and commercial, we are direct in a few areas, like Christine's worked extensively on trying to get a hotel out here. You need that hotel. That's the thing. In my corporate life, before I doing what I'm doing now, I helped set up locations for the company I worked for. We would not move into a community that did not have a hotel. We would not do it because you couldn't function. And Best Western in St. Helens, it's better than nothing. It's not the same as having a hotel here.
And they run mostly at full capacity.
So we need a hotel here. We've talked a little bit in the past about maybe the city offering, potentially offering credits back for some of the SDCs, so the city wouldn't spend their own money to get a hotel here. So for instance, hotels generate a tremendous amount of transportation SDCs because there's a lot of trips. Potentially maybe giving that money back to the developer for on-site development, which normally he would be responsible for. So it wouldn't be money out of his coffers, but it wouldn't also cost the city money directly. It would be an indirect. So I don't know if that fully answers your question, but we need to get our UGB larger. And there is one other thing I'd like to add, which I've talked about a few times, this whole idea of affordable housing. So affordable housing is based on your income of your area, and it's 70% of your income average, which basically means every apartment is affordable housing. So like the candle stuff down there that people talked about, that they're so disappointed, that's not affordable. It is by definition affordable housing. It's just not affordable for Columbia County residents. It's affordable for Portland residents. And so I don't feel like we should be doing subsidies to create quotation marks affordable housing, because all apartments just about are affordable by the definition due to our relatively high income. Because we have a much higher income than, let's say, Clascanine, I think our income's almost double of what Clascanine is. That level that's considered affordable housing, so a $1,200 studio apartment that's 340 square feet is technically affordable housing for our area. But it's not. So I would really like to see us talk less about quotation mark affordable housing and just talk about housing.
Livability.
So livability is a big part. The other thing that I would point out is the best way we can get industrial development here is by making the town very livable. People want to work and live as close to where they work as they can. And people are not going to want to live in Scappoose, which means they're not going to want to have a business here, at least the kind of businesses we would like to see. Good job wages and not a large impact on our community if it's not a place they want to live. So livability matters for industrial and commercial development, and housing matters because we just simply don't have enough land.
Aesthetics matter. I mean, this is what I do professionally. And when I look at moving a vice president or a director into a community, and he comes here, he likes the company, she follows, she's not going to move here. So he's not going to move here because our town has nothing to offer. Aesthetically,
I wouldn't go that far because we do have good schools. My kids went
But
to,
they're not even getting to the schools. They're just looking at.
no, I'm saying, yeah, we
I mean,
do.
I've
Yeah.
moved many people to very small towns.
No, I agree that we could do better with our aesthetics. I don't know. I don't have all the answers how we get there.
We don't have, I mean, other people who, I have lots of realtor friends, and there are people who don't move here and buy expensive homes. Obviously they do because we live here, but not everyone wants to live in Scappoose because we don't have amenities, because we look so shabby. I mean, we totally look shabby. We have liquor, we have pot, now we have massage, smoke shop. I mean, that's our town.
Well,
I just want to point out, we can't control.
Yeah.
Operating the development.
I know, but we can make it look good.
Well, one thing we can do, I'm sorry.
Question, there's a building out toward the airport and it's an educational facility or?
Mick?
Yeah. What exactly, I mean, I've been by that many times on the bicycle, never went in. What happens there? That's something we could use, like people in the community should be aware of. We're having,
It's the community college. Is that what you're talking
so
about?
that's
That's PCC.
the function of it?
Yes. And they've just opened to the public recently, haven't they? Just after COVID?
Yeah, right after COVID ended.
One community college in partnership with OMIC.
it's a small campus. It's not like, it's not a full-fledged, large campus. It's kind of like a satellite campus.
Can it be used by the public or type of use? In other words, if
Yep.
somebody wanted to have meetings there or something like that, or is it strictly community college?
They've stated that their intention is that the public could use the rooms there, but I don't know as anybody ever has since they had opened.
We do.
Okay.
There, we have some things.
So do they rent that to you or is it a,
Everywhere else, you just have to contact them and, I don't know the details, but.
they're there during the day? They're-
Okay, so I think we have a good set of goals. Can we say that?
Why don't you read them out loud?
You enumerate those?
Yes, we will. So long-term goal, update the downtown overlay or have some kind of design aesthetic that we all can agree upon. This was marketing the grant program to those businesses that we would like their facade improvements. Helping with the urban renewal program, asking to review those grants and making our recommendations to who they grant the grants to. And then this other one is the design aesthetic. So we really only have 3, which is fine.
Let's look at council's goals and see if there's something else we should pull off there.
So I do want to make sure that we get to 2.4 also.
I don't know if everybody's okay with it, but I'm okay if we go a few minutes over time, if we can skip our December meeting.
Who are you?
You can always make a motion to extend.
Yeah, I mean, if everybody's okay with it, I'm not trying to ram it down people's.
You and your 8 children. Totally want to meet in December. We're gonna have to Rochambeau about this.
Well, you can have a meeting, you could have a meeting in December.
Okay, so let's look at council goals. One of my readers. Can you read it to me? Because NJ picked the smallest font possible.
I can go ahead and read it.
So
I've got 'em up.
small.
So goal 1 is develop a vibrant and diverse local economy. First goal underneath is develop a downtown revitalization program. Number 2, evaluate the creation of a small business incubator. Number 3, identify goals for community branding. Number 4, support and monitor development of the Columbia Commerce Center. Number 5, work with partners to develop robust economic development marketing. Number 6, continue to support OMIC's expansion. Number 7, promote and support small local businesses. Number 8, promote and support countywide and local tourism. There are some other goals that might have some tie-ins under enhanced community livability. There's the develop a long-term comprehensive community vision, promote community events, one-on-one meetings with local leaders.
A question, what do they mean specifically by downtown revitalization? That sounds like that could be urban renewal district. It sounds like it could be downtown overlay. It sounds like it could be many things.
Yeah, and part of these goals is they leave that to staff to talk to them about. So sometimes we'll come to them and say, what do you mean? Sometimes we say, well, we have a downtown overlay, we have urban renewal district, we have a number of things.
Enterprise,
And we operate those.
okay.
Yeah, so it
It sounds like we're kind of addressing that goal already within ours. We're just using different words. So the only question is, do we want to change the wording in ours to match theirs? Say maybe downtown revitalization by, and then reviewing downtown overlay so that it more closely matches what they have, because I think it would be good to kind of sync them together.
yeah, and
They're
that'll
gonna have to be synced sooner or later. So if we don't sync it now, it'll get synced for us.
Okay, well then let's sync it.
A question on that real quick. So are we talking about lipstick on a pig, so to speak, with
Yes.
regards to this?
We
Or are we talking about actually creating a town center?
When you mean the downtown revitalization program?
Yeah.
Or-
Yes, but in general, I mean, it's one thing to say it'll be revitalized, and that might mean we throw some paint on it, it's revitalized or whatever, versus actually going to the next level and saying, we want to create a town center. We don't have one. And other towns who do well have great town centers. And that's where the commercial businesses can become viable, because there's energy between these things.
Right. We actually do have a town center. If you look in this immediate area, there's like over 50 businesses. It's just not put together well. So there's issues of tying it all together, be it through common architectural standards or by better pedestrian access, better sidewalks. But we always have this huge problem, which is Highway 30. That's going to be a problem for us no matter what, trying to generate a downtown that's a cohesive downtown, because we have this road going through the middle of our downtown.
That is something that Josh and I talked about, though, is really defining that.
Right, that's a lot different than like revitalization. Anything.
That is, you are correct, putting it on the pig.
All those things.
Well, yeah, so the way I would address it would be is use their verbiage of downtown revitalization and then say by, then viewing downtown overlay and potentially maybe even including the grant review process in that heading. And that way you'd have two tools to accomplish that goal. This is going to be a multiple year project. Yeah. So we're not going to get it all in one pot.
Well, I definitely want to talk about, have regular discussions on how we want to see, how we want to brand our community. Who are we? I mean, is that,
I think that's a long-term goal too, because I don't think we're going to pop that out in a year, and I don't think we're just going to be one piece of that puzzle.
right?
There's going to be a lot of other people that have input to that, but I think it could be included.
From a recommendation standpoint, seeking that information that NJ will provide.
Do we need to, is there a way that we can get in with the tourism's Main Street program? Because that was one of our original goals to
Yes.
accomplish.
So Wella has sent me that information. So hopefully we can have her come and speak at one of our meetings.
Maybe you want to say something like explore Main Street program.
Travel Oregon.
Travel Oregon,
Mhm.
with minimum impact to staff. If it can't be done without minimum impact to staff, then I think we need to bail on it.
Yeah, I think that's one of the things that Alex had mentioned to me once, was that, we talked about a Main Street program. We just don't have the bandwidth, and maybe we don't have a Chamber of Commerce in Scappoose. We don't have other types of organizations like that. And maybe that's something this committee does, is the Main Street program. Something you guys could do. And that,
We did talk about that with Alex, but she did say still that in itself would put such a burden on staff.
you have to create a separate organization.
When Susie was on our committee, she was part of the Main Street program in her former town, Shedco, and then she was a part of Shedco also, which no longer exists. But that that was an option. But I think this new partnership, and if we bring that lady in,
We
she
should
should
bring her in
help
at
us.
least, and so maybe for the possibility, without saying doing it, but I would put a comment in there without significant impact on staff time, because if we don't do that, it's gonna get shot down. It's based on staff.
Totally agree.
Okay. That's something to read. It's a possibility.
And I do want to say this, and I don't know if it's pertinent, but, you know, as we've grown, like when I moved here, we were 2,500 people, and now we're 8,500 people.
In the UGB.
And our staff has not significantly increased. I mean, we have NJ now and we have Isaac now. I don't even think we have Isaac as a position because you were Alex before.
There used to be an assistant city manager position way back.
That's
So-
Isaac.
Right, but I'm saying is, so that's not really a new position.
Yeah, that's why I said, I don't
Yeah.
know that Isaac's.
No, that position kind of rotates between assistant two and then sometimes assistant city
Yeah,
manager.
but my point is, you know, we've grown exponentially, but you guys haven't.
How else can we tie into to the city's goals?
I think that's it. I mean, we can't accomplish everything.
Yeah,
But
okay.
let's talk about 2.4. Let's talk about what we're doing.
One other question, which I don't know. A while back, they talked about us working on light standards for downtown. Is that still on the ticket?
I don't want to do that.
Want to do that?
No, because I don't think that increases economic development for our community. I think that should be on our thing.
I've done. Okay, it would tie into downtown overlay, just so you're aware.
I think that that's our best use of our time to talk about.
Okay, if you don't. So just so you guys know, if they don't seem to want to pursue the light bulb, light fixture thing, I'd be happy to meet with Chris if Chris wanted me to do it. I have a fair bit of experience with outside lighting. Now I could do that on the side if that would, and we could do it outside of our committee. So if you'd like to, if he's got it covered, I saw that originally they were looking at 6,000 K bulbs. I would, and there's a few other, I would not go with that intense of a light. It's almost going to have a blue hue at 6,000 K.
What you want to do as chair is to say, I'd like to ask if Brian would be willing to coordinate with city staff on light poles. And then that can be kind of an official action of the committee.
Oh, fantastic. I would love it if Brian Rosenthal would partner with the city to discuss the lights.
Yeah,
For the EDC.
I'll be happy to do that if desired. Not pushing though. I'm not trying to push my foot in the door.
Yeah.
So I'll be happy. I've gone through some experiences over the years on these things. So
I talk enough about light bulbs at home all the time. I don't want to do it.
my grandfather owned a light bulb manufacturing company, so it's kind of in our blood.
Before we move on in the agenda, could we get a vote just so we have the whole committee agreeing to the goals and state them out loud?
Can you read them one more time as
Yes.
revised?
So I don't have them in order. So inviting the lady and talking about the Main Street Travel Organ, creating vision recommendations, working on the updating the downtown overlay or the design aesthetic, working with Urban Renewal Program, asking to review the grants. And then my little sub-project is
On-
marketing the grant program.
You might want to be a little more specific on the one on the Main Street program. That seemed a little vague.
We're going to invite that lady and find out more information about the Main Street program.
And explore, maybe something like explore the possibility
And
if,
how we would partner with Travel Oregon.
and with limited staff time or something like that.
Correct.
These are for the rest of the fiscal year.
This is for fiscal 23-24 that council will adopt at the beginning of next year for the next fiscal year.
Should somebody make a motion for those to be our goals as amended?
Yeah.
Okay, I'll make the motion to make those our goals as amended.
And we're all in favor?
Well, you got to call for a vote.
Oh, calling for a vote.
All in favor?
I did that part.
Okay,
All in
aye.
favor. It's only the four of us.
Aye.
Aye.
Okay.
Joe, this process is very complex. Like, they make it look really good. You're gonna have to sit with Scott for a long time to master this. Okay, so let's talk about what we're going to talk about am I going to the work session or am I going to council?
Work session.
And that's the,
Yeah. Yes, 12th.
December 12th.
oh, but I have to have the report in by December 5th.
Correct.
Yes, and you're at 6:30.
We are at 6:30.
Yes.
She's told me I have to go.
So 6:30, and we're going to discuss what we've been doing. I think we're probably going to talk about what we will be doing.
Right. And then, yeah, I mean, like this really is an opportunity to continue building a bridge with a council relationship and to start asking them for how we better communicate and how we better establish goals and what our role is.
So this would also be a time that we talk about our goals and that we maybe get feedback from them, that kind of thing.
I wouldn't do all of the goals, maybe one or two that you kind of want to talk through, but the goal adoption is a separate thing. That'll just be a memo that
Okay.
you send to the council. It won't be an agenda item where you come present the goals.
Okay.
Am I understanding that correctly?
Yeah, so that's an official recommendation. So NJ will pull it up like a memo and he'll
Okay.
co-sign it with the chair. It'll go, this, you can go over the goals, but like he said, it's only 30 minutes. And with the, 4 new members of council, essentially, there's gonna be a big reorganization about who the liaison is to this committee. And some of those questions can be answered through the liaison through that channel. So whatever you want to work on first, or if you want a couple of really important pieces answered to talk about, I would bring 1 or 2 of those. It's kind
Okay.
of like NJ was saying.
Thank you.
Joe, I hope you're listening. I really want a liaison, number one, who will attend our meetings or at least participate, and somebody who's more business oriented, who really is focused on the economic development of our community. Diane? Yes.
Okay, what do you got?
I think that's it.
Okay.
Is that it? Want more?
No, I'm good. You're good. Do we get cover agenda?
Well, we have to talk about December 15th. Oh, how do you feel about December 15th? Apparently, we've got, what was that show with the wagon and all those children, Chattanooga? No, there was a show, you guys are too young to know that. It was with like 13 children and a wagon. Don't you remember, what was that show? Called the Rosenthal Show now. That's why he doesn't want to have a meeting in December.
We seldom have, I can't remember, we've only had maybe one December meeting because staff has things going on and we all have things going on.
I thought it was our
and-
Christmas
And
festival.
it seems to have been positive for the group growing experience to not have a very low attendance meeting with possibly not meeting quorum.
Maybe we should just do it as a Christmas party and we could honor our partnerships with the outside people. We could have a white elephant gift and exchange. I think it would be wonderful.
I think you'd have a wonderful time.
Wonderful time. I'll have, yes, would be a great idea with the gift exchange, right, Paul? Fun. So, okay, who wants the meeting December? I know what he wants. I don't mind it. You don't have to come.
Yeah, I won't come. So if you have one, I won't be here.
You guys think?
We'll be there if you have a meeting.
You,
That seems very, very,
I'm always on call. I never don't work, so.
so. Oh, Sean? Yes, I don't know if yes, I'll reach out to Sean. I'd asked you for contact information. I can go over there, but
you also could do it as a work meeting. A work things where you don't do votes.
I think,
Possible.
yeah.
So you wouldn't necessarily have to have a quorum for that, but
But if you do have enough people, if you do have a quorum and you are talking about business, then it would have to be public.
We gonna have our January dinner, Isaac?
The committee appreciation dinner,
I don't think it was.
I thought it was
later.
April.
Yeah, it was like April or May.
they pushed it back. It used to be in January.
Yeah, oh yeah, it used to be, but in 2022, it was in April.
Yeah. We'll have it again. We'll have it again.
It was like a holiday thing before.
I don't remember. Yeah, we will have it again.
Been here. Okay, so as it stands right now, we're having our meeting. Chris George can come, Paul can come, and I can come. And I'm sure Sean can.
Okay, that's fine.
I'm sure you will be here too.
I might.
Okay, so the meeting stands.
My 16 kids will all,
I know, right? Do we have to vote on it? or
Not if you're not changing anything.
Not changing it. I think that's it then.
okay.
How exciting.
You've got announcements.
What are the announcements? Oh, Lynn's on our thing. I talked to Robbie last week and he said with his new tenure, he's not able to participate.
The reason I put updates on there is because Christine, you and I had talked about doing where the committee members, like the voting members, get updates. So just talking about what's going on in economic development in the community, if people want.
Well, I definitely, I mean, we could talk about the hotel.
Hey, just one quick question. Is there any idea when those food court pods are going to be up and running?
Believe it's summer of this coming year.
Okay, that sounds right.
Any more? I think we're good. Thank you all for coming. It's a pleasure to see your shiny faces.